Hey guys, it's Jan, Not a Real Farm. So we are back today, guys. You can see here everything is still gloriously green. Thanksgiving is next weekend. The temperatures have been cooperating here, so you can see the plants really haven't had any sort of cold yet, which is fabulous for growing. Although you can see that they are starting to wind down. You take a look here, my sunflowers have called it quits. So now I'm just waiting for the seed to dry on those. Some of the seed heads are actually dry, so we're going to be taking those off and saving the seed. The basil has gloriously flowered, and pretty soon this is going to give me a bunch of seeds that we can save. But in the meantime, we can still eat the basil leaves off of here. I mean, the basil plant it took over, got amazing. Now for my coffee plants, they are not happy. It's cooled off enough at night now where you can see where the leaf color has started to change. They're not dead, but they're not happy at how much the temperature has changed, so we're going to be bringing those in. The peanuts, not sure if they're going to flower this year. I see some tendrils coming out, but normally they get a nice bright pink flower on them. I'm not really seeing that this year. This has been a really strange year for growing, guys. I don't know what you've been experiencing, but here at Not a Real Farm, it's been a challenge this year. So these are my Mexican huckleberries. Last year I had the Mexican huckleberry actually planted in that garden over there, and some of the seeds fell out. So you can see here, this is now turned into a Mexican huckleberry garden. And that's still going to give me berries. These grow like weeds. They give a lot of berries. So we'll be collecting those and turning those into jam. Look up. Look way up. Check out how tall the roses got. So the roses pretty much filled out on either side. And then I think way back when we started this rose experiment, I said, you know what, the roses probably aren't going to get that tall. Well, they did. So they've started to climb up. There's only 2 plants here. So there's one plant and there's the secondary plant, and it started to grow way up over the trellis. So it's going to be fabulously beautiful next summer to see the roses actually take on the trellis. I'll have to get up there somehow and clip them right across, but it's going to be beautiful next spring. So here is the horseradish. Now I have been snipping away at this because this is really ready for me to dig up. I've tried to sort of get in there with a shovel, and I've tried to let it die down a bit so that I can get in here and create more space so that I can get into the roots. So that seems to be working just fine. So I'm going to snip away some of these roots and then basically dig out the root and throw that on the store. All right, let's see what we got going on here. All right, I have been through here picking lots of tomatoes and things like that. Once again, the Mexican huckleberries have taken off. If you don't pick them, they're going to reroot themselves, of course, into my greenhouse floor, which I don't want that, so we'll have to deal with that. So some successful plants this year and some not. So my purple tomatillos did not like it in the greenhouse this year. They kind of just grew and fell over. They grew up the cattle panel, but they really didn't produce. There's no rhyme or reason for that. Just wasn't really a great growing year for the tomatillos. They didn't like it in here. Just back out a little bit. And so in here we've got Italian tomatoes. These are little paste tomatoes that you actually just cut while they're on the vine. And they're a very, very dry tomato. So what's going to happen is these are the kinds of tomatoes that if you hang them up in your pantry in the wintertime, they will last actually in through probably about 2-3 months into the winter once you snip them. So we try to leave them on as long as possible. Some of the stuff that's happening in here now is the roots are starting to sort of die down in the plants. So obviously the leaves are getting affected. And it's time to sort of snip some of this out now. The season is winding down. Big, beautiful paste tomatoes here. So we'll be keeping those. The delicious tomatoes, those were doing so well. But I can tell that the season has changed because everything has slowed down. And you can even take a look here. The peppers have started to slow down as well. These are a pumpkin spiced They're called a pumpkin spice pepper. They're hot. So we'll see if we actually get them to come to fruition. They're supposed to be a little bit bigger, but it doesn't look like they're going to do too well because I don't know about you guys, but the peppers were super slow this year. My Hungarian hot wax. These did well. I find the Hungarian hot wax are very low maintenance. You don't really have to pay attention to them too much. These ones are doing really good as well. Look at the tomatoes in the back here. And then, of course, we've got a bunch of hot peppers. Things are still super slow, and it's going into Thanksgiving weekend, but these are hot peppers here, these little green guys. What else do we have going on? Look at this. I'll actually have to reach in behind. It's a good thing they're smaller. Reach in behind and grab those tomatoes. They've actually gotten so heavy they've fallen down onto the ground, so we'll have to adjust that. We've got some fish peppers happening here. If you don't know, if you've never tried growing them, they're really cool. They become sort of multicolored hot peppers, really awesome. Here's our strawberry, our black strawberry tomatoes. So this has a little crack in it because the weather's changing. But lots and lots of strawberry tomatoes. You can look here. They grow in clusters like little cherries, but they're actually the size of a golf ball. So they're doing really, really well. I'm really happy with those. I grow them every year. They never let me down. You see the yellowing of the leaves? You can tell that the weather's changed. Our sweetie tomatoes that are normally on this plant have died down. These ones up here we'll have to sort of harvest. But what happens when the season slows down is the tomatoes become smaller and smaller and smaller. Another Italian paste that's really sort of slowed down, so we're going to clip him out. And then here we have our sunrise. This is a sunrise cherry. Let me just pull some of these off here so you can see. So this is a sunrise cherry. So sweet, really cool. But you can see this is the size difference that I'm saying. So when the season's changing, the cherry tomatoes are even getting smaller and smaller. So it's time to wind down the season soon, guys. We've had a successful year here at Not a Real Farm. Let's see what else we got in here. Got our blueberry cherries that are still doing their thing. The garden on the outside is done, so we've pulled most of the plants there. You can see the beans have gone crazy. I don't know what happened to the beans. This is my bean plant that's actually over another trellis. It's taken over. So the bottom of the trellis is actually here, and it goes all the way up over the trellis. It made a beautiful trellis this year. I didn't really get any beans from it. You can see here that the beans are flowering, but they're not really doing anything. Not really sure why, but that's okay. I really enjoyed the colors and really enjoyed how it covered the entire trellis, so I was happy with that. Down here, we've got our little miniature honeydew, which is still connected. So I'm going to leave them on there for a little while, but boy, do they ever pack a punch. They are super sweet. And like I said, we will be picking some of the sunflower seeds and take those off before they get, you don't want to get them moldy, which I see some of them have been because the humidity has been on and off in here, but the zinnias have started to dry. Saving the seed from that. And also down here we have our walking onions, which have now, you can see, it's started to bend in half. So they've actually fallen over. So we'll be getting a fresh new crop of walking onions. I have over 200 seeds from the walking onions. So we're going to pull some of these and we're going to move them over. The Queen of the Night never lets me down. Check it out. She's almost ready to pick here. Got a nice new cluster of Queen of the Night tomatoes. So she's got a little bit of green on her still. So she's going to take a little bit longer to mature. But we're doing really, really well for tomatoes this year. As you can see, I've missed some of them, so they've started to fall. So we're going to be watering in here. This is our blackberry bushes. Let me move out a little bit. Our blackberry bushes have actually come right to the floor. It's unbelievable. And if you look really closely here, I've tied this one up, but this one decided to grow all the way up over the trellis and touch the beans. So here are my scarlet runners. I started with one scarlet runner bush, and what it's done now is it's moved itself all the way up just to the half of the trellis. So if I had had another one there, they would have touched, but kind of cool. You can see all the nice flowers on the runners. They did really good. They make a wonderful bean to cover a trellis. I'm actually happy that they didn't produce any beans because I just enjoy the flowers. So taking down my sunflower head here, you can see that the top of what's left in the flower looks moldy. But if you actually take your hand, you'll find your seeds underneath. A lot of the myth is that the seeds are always going to be on top, but they actually have a covering on them. So if you take your hand and you scrape away at the top here, underneath is where you're going to get all your seeds. You see all the nice purple seeds in there? So those seeds are going to produce more of these guys. So if you ever see mold on the top of your sunflower heads, don't worry about it. You just scrape them off. You'll be able to see how many seeds you get underneath. I mean, there's got to be about 100 or more seeds in here. So we're going to be collecting all of these and taking the seeds to dry. Hopefully you guys can see that. The grapevine has done amazing. What we're going to do here is you can see the progress of the grapevine. So let me just get past the leaves. So some of this is now turned to wood, a nice woody vine. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the woody vine, but we're going to trim a lot of this here because you don't want your plant to put its energy into the greenery for next year. So you always trim before the winter. Not right now, not until it's cold. So it can kind of put itself to sleep if you want to look at it that way. So we're just waiting for the weather to be a little bit colder, and then we'll be able to trim all of this. Just thought I'd bring you over here. It smells amazing over here. So you can see here, this is where the bean has covered the trellis, which is kind of neat. And then over here, the little star of my show this year is the fig. So the figs really surprised me. I've got 2 there, and I have 1 that's developing here. So we got 3 figs off of this one tree, and I anticipate we'll probably get more next year. It's actually sent up a sucker, so we're going to be able to deal with that, and maybe, I don't know, we'll see what we can do for fig trees next year, but it loves it out here so far because the weather's so good. And that is really the progress of what's happening in this greenhouse, guys. It's still been amazing, even though the weather has been really strange. We were still able to grow a lot of our own food this year. And that's really it for us today, guys. Just wanted to kind of walk you through and give you an update as to what's happening with Not a Real Farm. If you'd like to contact us, please contact us at notarealfarm@yahoo.com, or you can check out our Etsy store at notarealfarm.etsy.com. See you soon.